Do you want me to invite Kalpen and Rajeev? Because मैं जितना भी बोलूँगा उनके लिए कम है. I'm a big fan of both of them. So if we are starting with the first session with them, okay, first I'll go by the alphabetical order. So let me invite Kalpen on stage. With a round of applause for Kalpen Parekh. मैं कल्पेन को शायद आई नो हिम फॉर द लास्ट 15 years इफ यू विल कल्पेन. और मैं जब सबसे पहले इनसे इंट्रोड्यूस हुआ था वो एक कॉलेज का बी स्कूल का इवेंट था. बी स्कूल का इवेंट था जहाँ पे कल्पेन पारेख ने एक प्रेजेंटेशन दिखाया था जब वो IDFC म्यूचुअल फंड में थे और वहाँ का था. इट वाज कॉल्ड व्हाट, वन इडियट. नहीं कल्पेन, व्हाट इज इट? वन इडियट. वन इडियट. अगर आप में से किसी ने देखा है वन इडियट ऑन यूट्यूब? या ओके, सो बहुत लोगों ने नहीं देखा है. बट इफ यू हैव नॉट, आई अर्ज यू कि आप जाके देखें. अभी शायद DSP में आके उसका एक डिफरेंट वर्जन भी आ गया हो, वो भी आई एम श्योर इतना ही अच्छा होगा. बट आई वुड अर्ज यू कि आप वो जाके देखें. कल्पेन पारेख ने वहाँ पे अपने प्रेजेंटेशन में हाफ एन आवर था कल्पेन पारेख का. कल्पेन पारेख ने 25 मिनट का वो वीडियो दिखाया और 5 मिनट बात करी. मैंने बोला बॉस ये बंदा अमेजिंग है. और तब से मैंने इनके साथ दोस्ती बनाने की कोशिश करी है. कुछ हद तक सफल रहा हूँ. और इनका जो स्टैटिस्टिक्स वो जो बताएंगे, शायद अगर मैं सही सवाल पूछ पाया तो विल बी आई ओपनिंग. सो विल बी अमेजिंग. आई विश दैट यू गाइज टेक अवे एज मच in this event from Kalpen Parekh as I'm sure I will. My next guest is the decorated Rajeev Thakkar. Rajeev, please come on stage. राजीव के बारे में ये कहना चाहूँगा कि मैं अब जितने भी म्यूचुअल फंड इन्वेस्टर को मिलता हूँ, जो भी हमारे एक म्यूचुअल फंड शो, वी डू अ म्यूचुअल फंड शो ऑन NDDB प्रॉफिट, वहाँ पे जितने भी क्वेरीज आती हैं या जितने भी एडवाइजर्स आते हैं उनको पूछें कि भैया एक म्यूचुअल फंड लिस्टिंग. सो मोस्ट कॉमन नेम इज PPFAS MF. यानी एक यूनिक सा फंड ये भी है कि राजीव बफेट के फॉलोअर हैं, वॉरेन बफेट और चार्ली मंगर के फॉलोअर हैं. उनकी इन्वेस्टिंग स्टाइल, उनका इनफैक्ट कंपनी का जो स्टाइल है वो भी ऐसे है. बहुत कम फंड्स ऐसे होंगे और हाउसेज जैसे होंगे जो एक स्कीम चलाते हैं और वहाँ पे फोकस करते हैं. सो बड़े यूनिक से इन्वेस्टर हैं. और आई एम श्योर के ये जो जुगलबंदी है कल्पेन एंड राजीव की, इससे मुझे आई एम श्योर आई गेट टू लर्न अ लॉट एंड आई एम श्योर ऑल ऑफ यू एज वेल विल गेट टू डू दैट टू. सो जेंटलमैन, बोथ ऑफ यू, थैंक्स फॉर जॉइनिंग इन. कल्पेन, एक लॉन्ग टर्म इन्वेस्टर को ये नहीं पूछना चाहिए कि मार्केट कल क्या लगता है, बट मार्केट कल क्या लगता है?
ये सवाल बहुत ऑफन आता है और मेरा बोरिंग जवाब अच्छा नहीं लगता है लोगों को. तो एक स्टोरी है जो मैंने बहुत सालों पहले पढ़ी थी कोई किताब में. JP मॉर्गन को 1914 में ये सवाल पूछा गया था, ऐसे ही फोरम में, न्यूयॉर्क स्टॉक एक्सचेंज में. इंग्लिश में पूछा था, मार्केट क्या लगता है, ગુજરાતીમાં નતું પૂછ્યું. તો એમણે 3 મિનિટ આંખ બંધ કરીને વિચાર્યું. તો બધા ઓડિયન્સને લાગ્યું કે બહુ જ લાંબુ પ્રેઝન્ટેશન આવશે અમારા જેવું, અને એમનો જવાબ 2 શબ્દોનો હતો, which I have learned to be the biggest universal truth of market. અને એમનો જવાબ હતો, markets fluctuate. So the honest answer is markets will fluctuate. The answer we like to hear is super तेजी है, market ऊपर जाएगा.
That's true. Rajiv, you don't take tomorrow's calls or day after tomorrow's calls, but તમારાથી સમજના चाहिए, आपसे समझना चाहूँगा कि आपका वर्ल्ड व्यू क्या है फॉर मार्केट्स में फिलहाल?
Well, let me take a stance. Okay, I'll apologize upfront for a really bad throat that I have. Kalpen, in his traditional style, calls it Vijay Dinanath Chauhan kind of voice. I apologize for that. Hopefully, we'll get him to do most of the talking for this session. Let me take a stand instead of just saying invest for long term. In the world, there is mean reversion. When you start, let's say, somewhere in December and go towards May temperature keeps rising as you move from winter to summer. Later on, extreme heat, 40 degrees, 45 degrees in a country like India. Does temperature go to 100 degrees? No. Seasons change. We go back to 10 degrees, 15 degrees. Expecting that just because you have woken up and started investing in equity, you have some fundamental God-given right that you will compound money at 30-40% return. It is not going to happen. Am I bearish on India? Absolutely no. I am extremely bullish on India. There's a wonderful presentation that Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav, who's a technocrat and a minister, gives. And if anyone feels bearish on the country, one should go there and watch the presentation. But despite being bullish on the country, can you be cautious on the market? Sure, you can. So, Kalpen said a short line markets will fluctuate. Let me again give a short thing that Warren Buffett has said. Be greedy when others are fearful. In March 2020, everyone said it's end of the world. We will go into Great Depression, nothing will happen, this, that. Things were not that bad. Today, everyone thinks very, very optimistic. So, be greedy when others are fearful. Be fearful when others are greedy. Today, are we seeing signs of greed? Extreme greed? In select pockets, I would think maybe yes. Am I bearish on equities? No. A young person, 20s, mid-20s, 30s, even 40s, has 5, 10, 15-year horizon. Please come to equities. Do your SIPs, invest regularly. If you need money in next 1 year for a house purchase, car purchase, wedding in the family, college admission, Monday morning, move to money markets. Don't overextend your stay in equities for the short term. Monday it could be higher, next Monday it could still be higher. I can't predict what the market will do. Based on where we are, you give valuation charts and all. I don't track Nifty aggregates at that level. But based on individual stocks, am I finding plenty of opportunities to invest? Answer is no. I'm not naming companies, but people will probably guess. Again, there's no buy-sell world view. But the old paint companies in the industry, paint companies, are at high valuations. The new entrants are also at high valuations. The big box retailing companies, you know the popular retailing companies in the market, there are 3 or 4, are at extreme high valuations. Quick commerce companies are also at high valuations. Now something has got to give somewhere. Again, let me quote a small line from a very old investor who is not alive today, obviously. Benjamin Graham, he said, obvious prospects for physical growth do not translate into obvious profits for investors. We spoke about GDP growth last 2-3 decades, which has been the country with massive GDP creation. China, what have been the stock market returns over there? 0. Why does that happen? Let me give Indian examples. Mid-90s, airline sector was opened up. Do those airlines exist today? Air Sahara, Air Deccan, Damani Airways, East West Travel, Jet Airways, Modi Luft. All of them have gone bankrupt. Cell phone, telephone companies came in. Are they around today? With the exception of Airtel, most people have gone bankrupt.
Sure.
With GDP growth, you need balance sheet, quality, pricing power, and right valuation. Thank you. Sorry for taking a lot of time.
No, completely fine. Please continue. Well said. If Rajeev, if your throat is not hurting, this Vijay Dinanath Chauhan sound is looking very nice or sounding very nice. So please continue. It's lovely to hear that. Okay.
If someone can get a cup of warm water, I'm fine otherwise.
Yeah, okay. A cup of warm water if we can get for Rajeev. I think it will help him during the remainder of the session.
In our college, when this movie was released, we used to try to get this voice, which Rajeev has got so naturally.
Naturally, yeah. No, but Kalpen, so Rajeev made an interesting point. If valuations upar hai and markets growth need not necessarily always follow GDP growth, etc. He's cautious in the short term because of valuations, I presume. Long term, he's constructive on India. So one thing, guys, I don't think Rajeev Thakkar is trying to say कि जो China में हुआ 20 साल wealth नहीं बनी वो India में होगा. I don't think he's trying to say that. Please be mindful of that. But Kalpen, I'd love to know your view. How do you think about markets in the short, medium, long term?
So, I think the more you read, the more confused and grounded you become. And my learning is that the world is massively unpredictable. The world is hugely unknowable. Because we are in markets, because I have to speak in forums like this, we try to find answers to questions which are not answerable. So in a way, your question is genuinely not answerable, but we always have optimism and hope. So clearly, like when I'm talking to you here, I am 65% invested in stocks. I'm invested in companies generating around 20-25% ROEs and at an average 15 to 20 P multiple. So मुझे markets क्या in a way नहीं पता है because through mutual funds I'm investing in an aggregation of stocks like this. They will fluctuate, but over a long period of time, such stocks have historically shown better odds of generating double-digit long-term returns with periods of 20 to 40% correction every 2, 4, 6, and 8 years. Almost every even year, there is a sharp correction. Last 5 or 10 years, the corrections have been less sharper or they've turned faster. But if we see history of markets, let me give another sobering thought that if you take the largest 25-30 economies of the world and their stock market returns, most of them have not, or most of them have earned 2 to 3% more than the inflation of that country, right? So the real long-term return, even in a market like US, has been around 10 to 12%, let's say 10% in dollar terms over a very long period of time. Another dimension, like everything is about this GDP growth. Like Rajeev said, China में 30 साल का GDP growth देखा है हमने. तो आज भी 11 P पे है. अभी देखते हैं last week से turn मारा है क्या होता है. And so there are so many things and variables beyond just these 1 or 2 variables. US went from $4 trillion, it went to today's $28 trillion. And this is a relevant comparison because we are there today, right? We are all aspiring, हम भी वहाँ पहुँचेंगे. कब पहुँचेंगे पता नहीं, because मैं बोरीवली से जब बेलाट पियर जाता था 25 साल पहले 2 घंटे लगते थे. आज पार्ला से बेलाट पियर 2 घंटे लगते हैं. तो lot of things, it's not linear. We have to have balance. So when they grew from 4 to 28 trillion, the dollar return is 10.5%. You add 3-4%, assume we were Indian investors, we got currency benefit, 13 to 14% is the long-term return. Sensex since 94 till today is 14% return. In fact, since that bubble in 90 to 93, it is 11% return. And bonds that time were giving 15-16% return. Right. So all I'm trying to say is that we have to be balanced. 1, 2, 3 years, we do get 30-40% return. But why are we getting 30-40% return today? Is because the base was a low of 2020. Last 10 years, the other day someone told me one of your fund in 10 years has given 18-19%. And in 20 years, it has given again 18-19%. So good, most funds have done. But in 2003, the last 5-year returns were 0. In 2013, the last 5-year returns were 0. We were at 11, 12, 13, P multiple. Today we are at 23, 24. So that balance is important. Kitna return banega genuinely किसी को नहीं पता है. And let me give a very honest disclaimer. हमारा regulator बोलता है कि disclaimer होना चाहिए. तो मेरा disclaimer ये है कि almost for the last 1 year I've been saying the same things. And markets are up 35%. So you can completely ignore all I have said. But there are better ways of investing and constructing a portfolio. So with a 65-35 portfolio also, last year someone who had gold in the portfolio has earned 35% return.
Right.
You showed a very powerful data point, right? So 20 years gold and Nifty or Sensex are same. Actually, gold and Sensex or Nifty have given 13 and 13. So mathematically अगर दोनों का average कर लिया तो आपको 13% ही मिलना चाहिए. But actually if you mix the two and rebalance every 3-4 years, the actual return goes to 14 over 20 years. 1% extra compounding over 20 years is huge. At 30% lower volatility or 40% lower volatility. So at different phases, you have to decide calibration कैसे करना है. So I would only say that you have to be invested because compounding equity से ही होगा. Pricing power to beat inflation equity से ही होगा. FD और bonds लेके you can't beat inflation. So being invested is a given. At large, we have to be invested, but there are some points in time where you can calibrate a bit. And you know this concept, a lot of people think that if you have 20% in cash in your portfolio or bonds in your portfolio, you earn zero return. Bonds भी 8% कमा रहे हैं. Last year, Government of India bond has earned 11% return because you know interest rates came down a bit. So when you diversify, it's not that other asset classes are giving zero. So depending on your risk appetite, like my niece who has started investing at the age of 2 is 100% in equity.
At the age of 2?
Because obviously we all believe in investing only, right? And the earlier you start, the better. I am, because of more exposure to too much of noise, I try to apply my intelligence and I'm at 65-70% equity and rest is gold and bonds. So each person's nuance is unique.
Yeah.
And depending on what suits you, unfortunately, what has happened is I started my career in 2000 and I saw 88% fall in funds that we had launched, technology funds. तब हमने सबको ये story बताया था कि Indian companies will rule the world in terms of technology. Since that day till today, some of those companies don't exist. Some of them have started ruling the world. But the stock price return is 12-14% since that day. So cycles will come and go. If you can ignore these cycles and not feel affected by them when they hit us, don't worry, don't even listen to all I'm saying, just stay put. But there will be volatility because that's the natural law of the world.
Yeah. और वो एक डिस्टिंक्शन इंपॉर्टेंट है आई थिंक फॉर पीपल हु आर न्यू कि एक्विटीज में 4 साल में पैसा बना है और आपने कभी मंदी का पीरियड इतना देखा नहीं या मंदी देखा है तो वो फट से बाइंग हो गई है. जरूरी नहीं है कि वो टेम्पलेट आगे रहे. पॉसिबल है कि नेक्स्ट 12 महीने में एक डाउनटर्न आए जो प्रोलॉन्ग्ड रहे. सो यू गॉट टू बी माइंडफुल ऑफ दैट. आई थिंक दोनों कहना चाह रहे हैं कि शायद एक करेक्शन आ सकता है. अगर आप वो वॉलेटिलिटी को स्टमक कर सकते हैं तो देन स्टेइंग इन्वेस्टेड माइट नॉट बी अ बैड आइडिया. चलिए ये मानते हैं कि प्रेडिक्ट करना बहुत डिफिकल्ट है मार्केट में क्या होगा. सो लेट्स लीव दैट आउट. बट ये तो समझ सकते हैं आप लोगों से कि क्योंकि आपने लास्ट 20 ईयर्स से इन्वेस्टमेंट किया है, डिफरेंट साइकिल्स देखे हैं, तो आपके लिए व्हाट हैज वर्क द बेस्ट कि जब भी आप ऐसे पीरियड्स में थे तो आपने क्या डिसीजंस लिए थे, क्या सोच के लिए थे और उसका सब्सिक्वेंट इम्पैक्ट आपके पोर्टफोलियो पे क्या था. बाय योर पोर्टफोलियो आई मीन योर म्यूचुअल फंड पोर्टफोलियोज, राइट? सो लेट्स ट्राई एंड लर्न फ्रॉम द बेस्ट थिंग्स दैट यू हैव डन. राजीव, कैन आई स्टार्ट विथ यू ऑन दिस? आप बोल रहे थे कि आप अगर कोई 1 साल में शादी के लिए या घर के लिए पैसा चाहिए तो कल मनी मार्केट्स में चले जाओ. आपने शायद ये पीरियड्स पहले भी देखे होंगे मार्केट्स में. तभी आपने क्या डिसीजन लिए थे, क्यों लिए थे और रिजल्टेंट इम्पैक्ट क्या था, प्लीज बताएं.
So the good thing about even expensive markets is that there are pockets which give you value. There are frenzied sectors and कोई ऐसे sectors होते हैं जहाँ पे valuation कम होते हैं, attractive investment opportunity होती है. तो late 90s देखे तो जो bubble था वो न्यू इकोनॉमी स्टॉक्स में था, जो टेक्नोलॉजी, मीडिया, टेलीकॉम सेक्टर्स बोले जाते थे तभी न्यू इकोनॉमी. ओल्ड इकोनॉमी जैसे कि एफएमसीजी कंपनीज हैं, दवाइयों की कंपनी है, बैंक है, उसमें इतना बबल नहीं था तो वहाँ पे आप इन्वेस्ट करके डिसेंट रिटर्न ले सकते थे. तो थोड़ा जो एक्सट्रीम में अगर कॉन्ट्रेरियन ओपिनियन रख के अंडर वैल्यूड सेक्टर में इन्वेस्ट करें तो अपॉर्चुनिटी अच्छी होती है. अगर आपने लेट 90s में कल्पेन जी ने बताया उन्होंने टेक फंड में इन्वेस्ट किया था वगैरह, अगर लेट 90s में आपने अगर इन्फोसिस और विप्रो के शेयर लिए होते और ये बहुत अच्छी कंपनियां हैं तो कंपनी के प्रॉफिट्स ग्रो हुए लेकिन स्टार्टिंग वैल्यूएशन इतना ज्यादा था कि 5-6 साल तक कोई रिटर्न नहीं आया. अब 7 साल आगे जाते हैं, 2007 में आप इन्फोसिस विप्रो ले सकते थे if you bought Infosys Wipro in 31st December 2007 and held for 3 years, despite the financial crisis, you would have made reasonably okay money. Whereas if you bought infrastructure, real estate kind of companies, so in some stocks you would lose 90% of your portfolio. 2017, the excesses were in small and mid cap space. Large cap was reasonably okay. So stay away from very, very expensive, frothy spaces. Be with well-governed companies in undervalued sectors.
Okay, so can I ask a follow-up, Rajeev? Where is it? We're not doing any stock conversation here, but where is it that you believe के markets frothy हैं और वहाँ पे probability of return शायद थोड़ी diminished हो?
I think entire consumption name, the slides that you show all the time gets people excited, right? India में GDP growth होगा, इंडिया में कंजम्पशन है, तो लोग बोलते हैं 30 साल की स्टोरी तो सेट है, अभी का अर्निंग क्या है, क्या मायने रखता है, इतनी ग्रोथ आने वाली है, तो 100 पी है, 200 पी है, 300 पी है, क्या या अर्निंग ही नहीं है तो अभी क्या फर्क पड़ता है? बेस्ट इज व्हेन देयर इज नो अर्निंग, तब आपको कोई जस्टिफाई नहीं करना है पी, फ्यूचर में प्रॉफिट आना है. सो दैट इंटायर कंजम्पशन इज टू माय माइंड अ बिट फ्रॉथी.
So by consumption आप बोल रहे हो कि FMCG हुआ, या I'm not saying आप वो कंपनी की बात कर रहे हैं, but the food delivery companies हुए या QSRs हुआ, ये वो direct consumption हुआ और indirect consumption भी आपको expensive लगता है?
In general, so the names that you are referring to in terms of sectors, in general, people are so bullish that nothing can go wrong. Let's talk about a sector where there is no listed company, so I can talk freely.
Yes, let's do
Okay.
that.
We don't have Uber and Ola listed in India. Ola Electric है वो अलग segment में. Ride hailing is not listed.
Yes, yes.
Everyone is excited. Profit नहीं बन रहा है, क्या बात है? Growth story. Now in Bangalore, they've created their own app, Namma Yatri, where they match. If you go to Kolkata, there's a Yatri Sarathi or some local app. Goa is creating its own app. There is ONDC, again backed by Mr. Nandan Nilekani and others, a government initiative matching people. They are going after ride hailing, food delivery, e-commerce, everything. Whether it will succeed, not succeed, separate matter. Is that a risk to see? Again, I'm saying obvious prospects for physical growth do not translate into obvious profits for investors. Is UPI a great growth story for India? Yes. Has it created a profitable franchise like Visa or MasterCard? No. It is a public utility for free. So, be mindful of valuation. The consumption space is looking frothy.
A great business need not mean a great stock. I think ये एक important बात देखनी भी चाहिए, क्योंकि आप कई बार सुनेंगे लोग बोलते हैं कि बॉस आप जो खाते हो ना उसी का स्टॉक ले लो, है ना? बहुत लोगों ने सुना होगा ये. आई थिंक ये चलता है, कई बार चलता है, बट हर बार चले वो जरूरी नहीं है. सो यू शुड बी माइंडफुल ऑफ द वैल्यूएशंस. आई विल प्रोब Rajeev further, बट Kalpen भाई, वन क्वेश्चन टू यू. वेयर इज इट, क्या लेना है या वो अच्छा लग रहा है, वो थोड़ा डिफिकल्ट क्वेश्चन है, बट शायद ये मार्केट पे, बट क्या एक्सपेंसिव लगता है वो तो थोड़ा इजी क्वेश्चन है, राइट? सो मैंने राजीव को वही पूछा था, आपको भी पूछाऊंगा. आपके फंड स्टांस में कहाँ पे आपको लगता है कि थोड़ा फ्रॉथ है? शायद वो स्टॉक चल भी जाए, वो बात अलग है, बट आपके वैल्यूएशन मैट्रिक्स के हिसाब से फ्रॉथ कहाँ पे है?
So today, if you see a lot of our large flagship funds which have the luxury to invest everywhere, around almost 35-40% is in banks. Banks and select NBFCs. So वहाँ पे वो 4-5 साल से चला ही नहीं है. Some of the largest bank stocks have earned returns less than their fixed deposit. तो उस बैंक के शेयर होल्डर को उसकी FD में ज़्यादा पैसा बना है पिछले 5 साल में. और मुझे याद है अराउंड 6 years बैक, आई थिंक जब डिमोनेटाइजेशन और वो सब हुआ था, तो एक नया बजवर्ड कॉइन हुआ था, फाइनेंशियलाइजेशन ऑफ सेविंग्स. And the theme was that, you know, all banks and NBFCs and housing finance companies, that space will make a lot of money. And in the next 3-4 years, they actually were the most underperforming sector because they had already become very large. So this is similar to what Rajeev said. Technology 2000 में over-owned हो गया था, but 2007-8 तक इतना बेकार हो गया था कि whole focus had moved to real estate, infrastructure and all of that. So today something very similar is happening under the labels of engineering boom, infra boom. All engineering industrial companies are at significantly high valuations apart from consumer stocks. So today, where are we invested or where we find relatively more comfort is banks, to some extent pharma companies. Largely, these are two pockets and few companies here and there in each sector. But actually, our challenge is sometimes, I wonder that we have to deploy almost 2 lakh crores. So our struggles are very different from struggles for all of you. You do not have that type of capital, so you can easily find 10 stocks for yourself. You can look up our fact sheet and see the top 10 stocks in our large cap fund, small cap fund, mid cap fund and create a portfolio. More or less, that should be fine. But we have to deploy 2 lakh crores. So some of these challenges become very obvious for us. So our hiding place right now is financials. Our hiding place right now is healthcare. Our hiding place is selectively auto. Our hiding place is a lot of global companies which are, consolidating for 8-10 years. Our hiding place is a lot of global companies which are growing at 12%, but with 30-40% ROEs and, dominance in the world. So if the question is, India में क्या अच्छा लगता है? Of course, because हम India में बैठे हैं. But today, as an investor, you have the luxury to increase your surface area and look at opportunities slightly in a broad-based way. Options are available. So one, learning curve for me or for us as DSP is to also think bit more absolute. Because when you manage large money, we should not be chained or boxed to narratives. Always ask this question कि यहाँ से 10 से 15% कहाँ दिखता है? And like I said, over 30 years, broadly markets have earned 13% return. Broadly, large funds will earn, plus or minus some percentage. If we do a better job, we'll do plus 2-3% more. If we do a poor job, we'll do slightly less. But at large, most sectors are expensive. And the fact that 35-40% of portfolios are in financials is an indication. Normally, we would not go that aggressive in one pocket. And then, of course, there are many businesses in low cycle, unique companies. So chemicals, there are some companies which 3-4 years have gone nowhere, and they are doing some good work. So, but you can't build a whole portfolio around that at scale.
That's true. Okay, at scale, it's important. By the way, कल्पन ने एक इंटरेस्टिंग बात बोली. आप लोग में से कितने लोगों ने शायद ये किया होगा, मैं पूछना चाहूँगा, हाथ ऊपर करें, कि you have looked at a mutual fund fact sheet, वहाँ पे holdings देखे हैं, and try and look at these companies and therefore buy it into your portfolios. How many of you have done that? Please मत कीजिएगा. Please मत कीजिएगा. So Kalpen has given it as an example, but I'm sure he'll be the first one to, okay, कि वो शायद ये स्टॉक कल बेच भी दे. उनके फैक्ट शीट में एक क्वार्टर के बाद दिखेगा. अगर आप किसी भी नोटेड इन्वेस्टर को या म्यूचुअल फंड को देख के कॉपी करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, प्लीज मत कीजिए. इट्स अ रेसिपी फॉर डिजास्टर, आई मस्ट टेल यू. बिकॉज शायद 2-3 में सक्सेस होगा, बट 10 लोग, मैं आपको 100 लोग दिखा दूंगा जिन्होंने किसी एक दिग्गज के कहने पे एक स्टॉक लिया था. उस दिग्गज का रीजन, उस दिग्गज का टाइम होराइजन बहुत अलग था आपके टाइम होराइजन से और आपके रीजन से और आपके टेम्परामेंट से. सो प्लीज बी माइंडफुल ऑफ दैट. राजीव ठक्कर शायद कभी कोई स्टॉक में इन्वेस्ट करें, उन्हें शायद 1 साल तक स्टॉक नहीं चलेगा, उनके पेट का पानी भी नहीं हिलेगा, आपकी नदियां बह जाएंगी. सो प्लीज बी माइंडफुल ऑफ दैट. Please be mindful of that.
Whenever I meet with my classmates from engineering days or MBA days, so they ask this question कि कहाँ पैसा लगाना चाहिए. 5-6 साल पहले नहीं पूछते थे because market इतना hot नहीं था, but अभी हर meeting में पूछते हैं. So always my answer is choose XYZ fund and do an SIP. So their first question is कि यार तुम सिर्फ DSP बताते हो. So I tell him वो तो obvious है. But if not DSP, normally I recommend this fund because they are a very favorite fund house of mine. And it wouldn't work. They'll say, "Yaar, ये सब boring है." So this time I gave them 10 names from our stock portfolio, small and mid cap names, because then they are not the usual HDFC, ICICI, all those. So they sounded very interesting, and all of them noted down the name. कि हाँ ये नाम है, ये नाम है, ये नाम है. And then I said, ये सब मेरे एक ही fund का portfolio है. So when you say the same thing through the name of a stock, it seems more exciting. But when you say it as a portfolio approach, it seems very boring. Outcome, as you rightly said, of course we don't churn that often. Our turnovers are 20%, but you are right that, and we also go wrong. The hit rate of a good fund manager over decades is 60 or 65%. 35% stocks we have gone wrong. Even today, in our top 10 stocks in many funds, there are 2 or 3 stocks which for 3-4 years have given zero returns.
Right.
So it's not that just because we are on this side, we have the right to. We are as human as all of you. We just hope that we make lesser mistakes and be slightly more disciplined.
No, also शायद आपने ये स्टॉक अपने पोर्टफोलियो में 5-6 क्वार्टर पहले ले लिया हो, बट उन्होंने इस बार की फैक्ट शीट देख के सोचा कि चलो ले लें, और आप शायद बेचने के मूड में हो. सो जस्ट वो प्लीज स्टडी करो. अभी तो काफी टूल्स हैं, मतलब अगर आप वो स्क्रीनर या बॉम्बे एक्सचेंज फाइलिंग्स वगैरह, फैक्ट शीट्स वगैरह देखें तो देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ वे टू गेट एजुकेटेड. सो प्लीज कीप दैट इन माइंड. अच्छा, यहाँ पे कितने लोग हैं जिनका इन्वेस्टमेंट्स में डिफेंस और रेलवे स्टॉक्स हैं? प्लीज रेज योर हैंड्स. चलो, बी ऑनेस्ट, रेज योर हैंड्स इफ यू हैव देम. मोस्ट लोग के पास होते हैं. मैं समझना चाहूंगा, कल्पन ये आपसे पूछना चाहूंगा, क्योंकि राजीव ने बताया वो क्या अवॉइड करते हैं, मैं उनको पूछूंगा अभी उनको क्या अच्छा लगता है. उनके फैक्ट शीट में हो गया, नॉट गेटिंग इनटू इट, बट क्या ये पॉकेट्स जो डिफेंस हैं, रेलवेज हैं, जिनकी ऑर्डर, मतलब द मोस्ट कॉमन रिफ्रेन दैट आई गेट इज कि उनकी ऑर्डर बुक 2030 तक है, हर साल वो लोग इतना ग्रोथ करने वाले हैं, तो मंदी क्यों करनी है? आई वांट टू अंडरस्टैंड फ्रॉम यू कि आपको क्या ये फ्रॉथी लगते हैं, और क्या एज अ फंड हाउस आप इस पे बुलिश, बेरिश, न्यूट्रल क्या है?
So, see, we added a lot of defense. So, we have a thematic fund called Tiger, where we invest in a lot of engineering and industrials and manufacturing and, these type of companies. Around 2020 is when we relaunched this fund. It is a 21-year-old fund. It, as of today, is one of our best fund. And I want to add one more statistic, that from 2008 to 2020, the returns were less than savings account. Because thematic funds go through cycles. So in 2020 or 21, it was very unattractive to invest because past returns अच्छे नहीं दिख रहे थे. But that was a great time to start investing again. And at that point in time, we picked up around 12 to 14% in defense companies, which in the next 3 years, because of the huge move, went up to around 20-25%. Today, we brought it down to single digit. So that is our expression of view. So no doubt order books hai, but at some point in time, margins kitna maintain hoga, at what price. They were all at single digit PE 4 years back. It's important to keep that dimension in mind. Today, they are having PE multiples of some of the consumer companies. And consumer companies have far higher predictability for them to get stretched valuations, even though not justified. So these are the type of frauds, and a lot of retail money chasing stocks with free float. Hence, prices keep rising, and they can continue to double from here. Who knows? But somewhere, when you look at data and say that, okay, यहाँ से 15% बनने के लिए for this type of growth rate, what is the price you pay? And the price you are paying today does not necessarily give a 15% indication. See, our math says नहीं बनेगा doesn't mean नहीं बनेगा. There are times we have sold a stock and the stock is up another 2x. So many times my colleague tells me, यार ये valuation का question मत पूछा करो, because every time I have been disciplined in the last 1.5 years, I've only earned lesser returns. Then you'll come and say NAV grow नहीं हो रहा है. But these are the institutional imperatives we have.
मुझे याद है ये JP Morgan की कॉन्फ्रेंस की मैं बात कर रहा था, तो एक संजय मुकीम करके उनके हेड ऑफ इक्विटी रिसर्च है, उनको मैंने पूछा कि मार्केट पे क्या व्यू है, तो उन्होंने बोला कि अभी हमने 2 साल से वैल्यूएशन की बात करना बंद कर दी है, क्योंकि वैल्यूएशन पे मार्केट को जस्टिफाई करने जाओ तो आपने मुंह की खाई है. सो वी आर अवॉइडिंग दैट, वी आर डूइंग समथिंग कंप्लीटली डिफरेंट नाउ. बट राजीव, आपसे पूछना चाहूंगा, आपने ये बताया कि कहाँ पे आपको फ्रॉथ लग रहा है, क्योंकि आप थोड़े कॉशियस लग रहे हैं विद द राइट रीजंस. मैं समझना चाहूंगा फिर भी आपका कन्विक्शन रेट हाई कहाँ पे है?
I'll not repeat it. Pretty much what Kalpen ji said. Banks, select pharma, select IT services. On the bottom up basis, maybe some utility, mining, and our fact sheet is in public domain.
Is a public domain. Okay.
Look at.
तो एक पूछना चाहूंगा, बैंक्स, ओके लेट्स स्टार्ट विद बैंक्स. बैंक्स क्यों? जैसे इन्हें बताया 4-5 साल से रिटर्न्स नहीं बने हैं. कई लोग जो क्रिटिक्स हैं, दे आर सेइंग कि भाई कैपेक्स के लिए लोगों, कंपनीज को भी बैंक्स की इतनी जरूरत नहीं है, क्योंकि प्राइवेट बॉन्ड मार्केट से एक्सेस है, ये है फलाना ढिमकाना. तो अगर कैपेक्स ग्रोथ और जीडीपी ग्रोथ हो रहा है, तो जैसे 2003 टू 2008 में हुआ था कि कैपेक्स जीडीपी ग्रोथ हुआ और क्रेडिट ग्रोथ बहुत स्ट्रांग था, इस बार होना जरूरी नहीं है. तो आप, आई मीन, इज दैट फेयर क्रिटिसिज्म, या आप बोल रहे हैं कि नहीं बैंक्स में फिर भी?
It is completely unfair criticism.
Unfair criticism. Okay, fine. तो प्लीज बताएं क्यों?
Real estate companies have been among the best performing stocks in the last so many years. इतने कर बिक रहे हैं. ये टावर लॉन्च हुआ, immediately बिक गया
जी.
$1 billion worth of sale. ये वो mortgage borrowing लोग पब्लिक मार्केट में आके करेंगे, ये IPO करेंगे. कहाँ से बोरो करेंगे लोग? बैंक से करेंगे. Some housing finance companies will get such a, so one of the companies got listed now, or there are the older housing finance companies. But will banks not lend money? They will lend. You mentioned corporate capex. 2020, there was a big crisis in debt mutual funds. You had IL&FS crisis happening, and some of the larger corporate names defaulted. One of the mutual fund houses had to shutter redemptions. उसके बाद से corporate bond market is restricted to AAA and at best AA plus names.
Okay.
नीचे मार्केट ही नहीं है.
ओके, तो उन सब लोगों को बैंक चाहिएगा.
The top-notch AAA names, NTPC, Power Grid, these were never dependent on banks. वो मार्केट से बोरो 10 साल पहले भी कर सकते थे, आज भी कर सकते हैं. The middle market does not have access to corporate bond, to at least mutual funds or large insurance companies. Why will lending not happen?
Got it. Okay, fair point. एक because you are such a quality conscious investor, आपको एक follow up पूछना चाहूँगा. क्या आपकी फैक्ट शीट में होगा शायद, बट जस्ट समझना चाहूँगा साइकी. Are you more constructive on private sector banks या आपको state owned banks पे भी bullishness है? क्योंकि लास्ट 3-4 साल में state owned banks have done very well. PNB, SBI, BOB, etc. तो आप कहाँ पे bullish है ज़्यादा?
State owned banks have done very well in terms of stock price.
Stock price, yes, of course.
So there are 4 private sector banks and 1 public sector bank. 5 banks which have scale, which have good technology back up. They are present in all allied financial services, be it life, general, mutual fund distribution, all of those, stock brokerage, all of those, investment banking, and which have the reach. These 5 are doing reasonably well. As a group, the smaller public sector banks are ceding market share. So, in our portfolio, we have private sector banks.
Okay, fair call. कल्पेन, हमने सुना है कि म्यूचुअल फंड्स आजकल आईपीओ में बड़े इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं. सो लोग बोलते हैं कि आईपीओस पे कॉशियस रहना चाहिए. यहाँ पे हाफ द पब्लिक और मोर देन हाफ द पब्लिक आईपीओस में इन्वेस्ट करती है. म्यूचुअल फंड्स भी करने लगे हैं. क्या बात है आईपीओस के बारे में?
Generally, we have not invested in most IPOs.
Okay.
Globally, data shows that 80 to 90% IPOs in the next 3 years don't beat markets. Because IPO में कोई बेच रहा है, और जो बेच रहा है उसको मेरे और आपसे ज्यादा मालूम है, बिकॉज उसकी कंपनी है. तो अगर वो बेच रहा है, इज टेकिंग एडवांटेज ऑफ गुड प्राइसेस एंड हेंस ही इज सेलिंग. सो इफ वी गो एंड बाय, इन अ वे यू आर गिविंग इजी एग्जिट. सो वी लुक एट IPOs, वी लुक एट लॉट ऑफ IPOs बिकॉज दे आल्सो टेल अस कंपटीशन इन में क्या हो रहा है, उस सेक्टर में क्या हो रहा है, कैपिटल रेजिंग कहाँ हो रहा है, वेयर कैन मोर मनी गो एंड चेज एंड क्रिएट कॉम्प्लेसेंसी. सो इट्स वेरी गुड टू लर्न. Selectively we have invested in few IPOs, one, maybe 5 out of 200 which would have come in the last few years. But I think the lens to look at, actually we run a presentation called Unlabel Your Investing.
Unlabel Your Investing.
Okay. Because in the quest of simplifying investing, we give labels. ये वैल्यू इन्वेस्टिंग है, ये ग्रोथ इन्वेस्टिंग है, मोमेंटम इन्वेस्टिंग है, लार्ज कैप है, मिड कैप है, स्मॉल कैप है, IPO है, ओल्ड फंड है, न्यू फंड है. दीज आर ऑल लेबल्स. अल्टीमेटली PMS है, AIF है, म्यूचुअल फंड है, एक्टिव है, इंडेक्स है, ऑल ऑफ दीज आर लेबल्स. पैसा जाता कहाँ पे है? पैसा जाता है कंपनीज में. कंपनीज धंधा चलाती है, प्रॉफिट बनाती है, और हमको कैश फ्लो मिलता है. तो वो कैश फ्लो क्या भाव पे हमको खरीदना चाहिए is a call to make. So if a good IPO, or if a good company is coming with an IPO where we feel अगले 3, 5, 10 साल में अच्छा कैश फ्लो बनने वाला है, और ये भाव जिस पे IPO आ रहा है अच्छा है, by all means we should invest, and we do take those decisions. On the other hand, there are many times IPOs generally come in a bull market. COVID के टाइम पे कोई भी IPO नहीं आया था, right? And rightly so. Why will a promoter want to sell? He's timing the market. At large, the other side, we are all on the other side. We may end up mistiming by giving exit So we have to see वो IPO का reason क्या है? Is it to take money and invest back in the business? Is it to increase capacity, or is it to give an exit? Is it because promoter wants to sell? We see so many large investors today who sell their company and they come to us and say that अभी हमारे पास 2,000-3,000 crore है. Tell us which funds to what should be our asset allocation. So when we ask कि आपने क्यों बेचा, आप एक बाजू धंधा बेच के दूसरे का धंधा खरीद रहे हो, तो बोला नहीं वो मेरा महंगा था धंधा तो बेच दिया.
बट उसके बाद भी स्टॉक्स बढ़े हैं. जैसे मोस्ट कॉमन एग्जांपल वो वर्लपूल वाला है, राइट? कि वर्लपूल प्रमोटर ने इतना बेच दिया और स्टॉक अभी डबल हो गया है. तो लोग बोलते हैं वो भी क्यों उससे डरना?
नहीं डरना चाहिए. आई एम नॉट सेइंग डरना चाहिए. ऑल आई एम सेइंग इज कॉन्टेक्स्ट इज इंपॉर्टेंट. There are times when IPOs have not made money. There are times many IPOs have lost 70-80% after listing. If the underlying story is not solid, if the underlying numbers, and then it also is a function of mood of the market. Abhi ka mood aisa hai ki, my yoga teacher also before starting the class will ask ye IPO aaya kya karna chahiye. So the last slide you had shown is what I'm going to highlight. Ki jo hai usme khush raho. But again I'm saying label se zyada, so at large statistically, historically, IPOs have not worked. But as you rightly said, many times, these generalizations apply for 70, 80, 90% of times. There are 10, 15% of times something else will apply. So there are many good companies which have done an IPO and have done exceedingly well. So it is important to identify that. Don't invest just because it is an IPO. Invest if it is an IPO of a good company at a reasonable price, or you have some way to judge कि यहाँ पे demand इतना आने वाला है listing के बाद भी कि थोड़ा पैसा लगा दो. The only challenge is how much will you get? What is the materiality?
That's true. Actually में 2 IPO में तो अभी हमें पता चल गया, हम definitely जब आएंगे तब invest करेंगे, right? Any guesses? The 2 IPOs? Actually, okay. The simple answer is जब ये 2 कंपनी लिस्ट होंगी, DSP MF and PPFAS MF. It's a very simple thing to do. Okay, sorry, I can't ask them for specific IPOs, so you'll have to excuse me for that. अच्छा, एक ऑडियंस से क्वेश्चन लेना चालू करेंगे. उसके पहले एक लास्ट क्वेश्चन. आपकी या तो एक बेस्ट इन्वेस्टमेंट डिसीजन या तो सबसे कॉस्टली मिस्टेक जो आपने करी हो, शायद 10 साल पहले भी करी हो, और उससे आपने क्या सीखा हो. Either of them is fine. Rajeev, can we start with you?
Best investment decision is being overweight equity in my career. Worst investment mistake was being underweight in the first 2-3 years or 4 years of my career. After that I realized. So when one gets the first job, typically लोग बोलते हैं ठीक है एक PPF account खुलवा लो, life insurance policy ले लो. And at that time I was not even married. I don't know why I went and bought the life insurance policy. So yeah, so it was an initial mistake, but got corrected very, very quickly. And regularly saving, investing in equities has done very well for me.
Okay, but I will come back to you, Rajeev, because ये थोड़ा easy answer था. मुझे थोड़ा difficult answer भी चाहिए, कोई जिससे हमें सीखने मिलेगा. बस every time राजीव ठक्कर से बात करो तो कुछ investing related. मैं आपको ये भी पूछ सकता हूँ राजीव, after I ask Kalpen, कि कोई एक ऐसा valuation metric जो एक सीरियस इन्वेस्टर यहाँ पे बैठा हो जो इजीली अप्लाई कर सके, बिकॉज EVCFO ये वो थोड़ा सा डिफिकल्ट हो जाए, तो एक इजी वैल्यूएशन मेट्रिक. आई विल कम टू यू ऑन दैट, बट Kalpen, to you, same question. Your most costly mistake or your best investment decision?
So the best decision is that I came in the fund industry in 98. तो 98 में someone explained to me that savings account में पैसा मत रखो, because वो बैंक का float है, वो आपको 4% देता है और वो 16% बनाता है. तो सीधा स्टॉक खरीदो and obviously start through equities. So 98 से being invested, and then SIP has been a very, very boring, very underrated instrument of investing, because when headlines are negative and when markets are down 20-30%, your emotion tells you, your intelligence tells you, extra intelligence tells you don't invest. SIP does not ask that question. वो चुपचाप अकाउंट से निकल के यूनिट खरीद लेता है. So I have something called as birthday SIP. जो भी आपका डेट ऑफ बर्थ है उस दिन हर महीने में पैसा निकलना चाहिए. तो मेरा 28 तारीख को बर्थडे है, तो every 20th there is an SIP which happens without asking me. It does not ask me market view क्या है, because if it would have asked me market view क्या है, in last 25 years almost every day there were positive reasons to invest and there were negative reasons to be worried about. So I would have given some answer and made wrong decisions. So SIP has been a very good decision. Another example I'll give was 23rd March 2020. One of the best day to invest in hindsight. उस दिन नहीं मालूम था, but today we all know, right? It has become a very defining moment. So on that day, I invested a lot of money which was in my other part of the portfolio, which is bonds. I also told I took permission to invest our companies some money in equity, because we said on this day if we don't invest, we should not be in this business. So I got the permission to invest. So I started asking for this permission at 9 in the morning. We had internal debates. Galat decision hai, ye hai, wo hai. At 12 I got the permission. I was given let's say 100 rupees of limit to invest. I invested. Out of that 100 rupee limit, I invested 5 rupees. So it was a great day to invest, but the sizing was very poor. So decision अच्छा था, but courage was low, because on that day there were so many questions कि ये लॉकडाउन तो अभी शुरू हुआ है, कब तक चलेगा नहीं चलेगा, and so many times I tell some other colleagues that I wish I would have invested a lot more, but the answer that time was that what if 7 days later Fed would have not come and done a stimulus, ECB would have not done. So there are a lot of alternate histories which may play out differently than how they played out in the last 4 years. So it was bad in hindsight in a way that the sizing was not right.
Yeah.
And lastly,
sure.
Again, these are learnings. Every time I have, let's say, temporarily rebalanced, taken some money out from my, mid-cap fund or thematic fund because it's run up a lot. What you realize, 1 month later, the CA says कि tax भरना पड़ेगा because you capital gains भरना है. And then you learn कि वो जो tax भरा है, उस पे अगले 30 साल का compounding चला गया. And that is a huge amount. 1 crore rupees in 30 years at 12% is 30 crores. So every 1 rupee of unnecessary capital gains tax paid. So markets have to actually fall 15-20%, and you have to re-enter again to justify these decisions of paying tax. So I think unnecessarily fiddling with your portfolio, and these days it's very easy because mobile app पे सब कुछ आ जाता है, 2 बटन दबा के exit मिल जाती है. So controlling those urges and emotions of not unnecessarily transacting. So there are many such bad decisions once in a year when you say, chalo, let's take some money out. So far taking money out has been a bad decision because we have only been at a higher level every 2 or 3 years.
Got it. Okay. राजीव, क्या मैं आपको पूछ सकता हूँ एक easy to apply valuation metric, and then I'm sure आप लोगों के बाद बहुत questions होंगे, so we'll open the floor for questions for both of our guests, but easy to apply metric.
Think like a business owner. Simple.
Think like a business owner.
Yeah. Outside this hotel, let's say we go 100-200 meters, there's a restaurant. Now if that restaurant were to be available for sale outright, it's not a listed company, you have the money in your bank account, let us say the asking price is 50 lakh of rupees. What are the information, what is the information that you would want to decide whether it's a good restaurant to buy for 50 lakhs or not? The same thinking has to go when you look at a stock. When you multiply the market price of a company by total number of shares, that is the market cap of this company. If you had the money, would you buy this company outright as a business owner at this market cap? Okay. So, in the restaurant example, one is asset-based valuation. इसका जो premises है, owned है कि leased है. अगर owned है, तो उसका market value क्या है, furniture का value क्या है, that is asset-based valuation. Second is earnings-based valuation. हर महीने गल्ला कितना है, top line क्या है, bottom line क्या है, what is your return expectation? Is it a growing area or a dud area? Say.
Okay, interesting. Maybe we'll probe this a bit as well, but I think we should throw the floor open for questions because I'm sure questions होंगे. So, जिनके पास भी questions हो, please raise your hands and let the mic come to you. Please stand up, introduce yourself, and please mention who the question is for. Okay, anybody has questions for our guests? Raise your hands, please. Okay, the gentleman on the 4th row. Let a mic come to you, please. Let's wait for a minute. No problem. वैसे राजीव मैं बोलना चाहूँगा these days आपके what is necessary for buying a stock? I think for a lot of people यार मेरे फ्रेंड ने बोला है ये भागने वाला है, तू ले ले. I think that is what is necessary these days. So that is a bit of a problem.
People do more research in buying a mobile phone or a washing machine than they do for investing lakhs of rupees in a stock.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's true. Actually, think of it. I'm sure हम सब लोग गिल्टी होंगे ये सब चीज के. किसी ने बोला कि ये भागने वाला है और हमने शायद 25,000 50,000 लाख रुपए डाल दिए. राजीव इज वेरी राइट. आप एक मोबाइल ले रहे हो या कुछ ले रहे हो तो आप एटलीस्ट हाफ एन आवर 1 आवर रिसर्च करते हो फॉर अ आइटम विच इज 20-25,000 रुपीज 50,000 रुपीज. लेकिन कोई स्टॉक पे लाख रुपए लगाने से पहले काफी कम रिसर्च होता है. आई थिंक दैट शुड चेंज. बट एनीवेज, प्लीज योर क्वेश्चन. व्हाट्स योर गुड नेम प्लीज?
My name is Jit Shah, and good morning everyone over here. So my question is, what do you see as the biggest challenge for mutual fund managers today in terms of changing investor expectations, and how are firms innovating to overcome it?
Yeah, so this is a challenge always. In bear markets, we have to set expectations that why you should be invested and not, look at past returns. And good times, we have to again say that why you may have to moderate your returns and not look at past returns. So the only way we can do this is to constantly communicate, constantly educate, and, be a voice of responsibility, talking with data, talking less with stories. Talking with more objective data, and also telling investors in the past when have things go wrong. So, when you ask what is the strategy, at DSP we've created a digital tool which shows the journey of NAVs over its history in a visual format, and it allows you to see that what were periods when you earned zero returns or negative returns. We also publish rolling returns where we show that. In fact, one of my first slide, which was not needed later because we have Neeraj Bhai doing the moderation, was that on a rolling 5-year basis, 25% of times bonds have done better than stocks. Are you aware of that? When you put across this condition, many investors will say, one, I was not aware. Two, this is then not relevant for me the way I was thinking. So education is the most important thing. Being objective is the most important thing. I think, investing has become more about storytelling. More about narratives, and you have to always go and test the narrative. क्या data वो narrative दिखा रहा है कि नहीं? Like even today, when you read the commentary of a lot of companies, they are saying that our revenue growth is slowing down. Profit growths are moderating down to single digit. Now that's the story. On the other hand, we have that's the data. And on the other hand, there are a lot of stories about long-term growth, so on and so forth. So I think it's only about constantly writing, communicating, and educating, and giving a very balanced perspective, and talking about risks in the short term, rewards in the long term.
We have your presentation. Which slide is it? Any idea?
Oh, I think it was the first one. Yeah. So this shows, if you see here, this is a simple Sensex since 97 se data available tha when we made this. So here you click just 2 buttons and you can do a lot of iteration. And this shows that the minimum return for an investor, if invested in Sensex, over a 5-year period was 6% per annum. 6% per annum means if you compound it's around 30%, 35% negative return. And in that period, bonds had done better. Or, bonds generally earn 8% and above in India. So how often would you have earned less than 8%? So 21 and 4. So these are periods. So this shows the rolling return. So if you see, those are 4 से 7 का जो phase था was the mother of bull markets for India, where 5-year returns for Sensex companies were 50%. And there were periods where it has gone negative here. It went to 0 in the 2013, 8 to 13 bear market. It went to 0 temporarily because of COVID crash. So there are these cycles, and through visually looking at data, you can form your inferences and judgments, and then say that, okay, where are, so the learning here is you do get negative returns for 2-3 years. The message here is not to say get out because kal se niche jaane wala hai. We don't know when will things change, but generally, if you see, barring this 2006 and 8 phase, 20 ke upar, the line has rarely been there on a 5-year rolling. And we are somewhere closer to that line at this point in time. So mean reversion keeps happening. और 20% के ऊपर रिटर्न क्यों मिलना चाहिए? अगर कंपनीज का प्रॉफिट divided by their capital base is 14-15% at large in India. So then why should you get 20-25% per annum? So somewhere you have to balance. So I think the key only point here is look at data, be objective. That is all we can do, and you should demand that. So it's your hard-earned money. It is our responsibility to communicate, but you should also demand, talk with data. Like I said, this infrastructure fund, that is one of our best performing products in the last 5 years because the cycle is favorable. For 12 years earned, and not just our fund, the whole category earned less than savings account return for 12 years. And 2008 mein story kya tha? India will become China. That was the story. All presentations used to show Mumbai roads and China ka roads. तो दोनों change नहीं हुआ है. But be objective is my limited point.
मुंबई रोड्स तो डेफिनेटली नहीं हुआ.
नहीं, अभी वो बन गया है ना, अंडरपास.
अंडरपास बन गया. थोड़े अच्छे हैं. Okay, but I hope this answers your question. Yes, please. The lady out here in the 6th row, please. Ma'am, आपका नाम and who's your question for?
Namaskar, Jai Shri Krishna. I am Yashaswini Tembe from an NGO called E+ Foundation. We spoke a lot about investment from this general audience here, or general people, common people staying here. But we work in the rural sector, and there is huge number of rural population, especially women, waiting to be included in this investment market. However, 500 rupees, the minimum amount to be invested in SIP, that is at times for some, say 60% of women is beyond their reach. So can something be done, to get it down? Like in Bangladesh, Mr. Yunus Bhai, he is awarded Nobel Prize for working in microeconomics. So what is your take on that?
So I'll quickly answer. A lot of us now have introduced the 100 rupee SIP. So
Okay.
You can start with 100 rupees, number one.
Jhaveris have this?
शुरू हुआ है, सब म्यूचुअल फंड्स का अभी नहीं हुआ है, बट शायद 1-2 महीने में ये हो जाएगा.
Okay.
So some funds have started, we have started. SEBI is also, encouraging the whole industry at large to encourage small tickets. I see the reason why small ticket size SIP so far have not been launched is every installment has a certain cost. R&D का cost होता है, फिर payment aggregators का cost होता है. It makes that 100 rupee investment completely unprofitable for all of us. And because it's unprofitable, then no one will do justice to it. So SEBI as a regulator is also talking to the ecosystem to bring down the cost for that 100 rupee SIP. So it will be like a micro SIP, and very shortly, I think that will be available.
We feel 200 is quite reachable for most of them.
So very soon you'll get 100. So that will be one step forward.
Okay, dhanyavad.
Thank you for asking. And ma'am, it'll be really good to see rural women coming and investing in a big way. तो अगर ये हो जाए तो बहुत अच्छी बात है. I mean, genuinely, it's great to hear you talk about this today. So thank you for your question. Yeah. Okay, there's a gentleman in the back row, and then we'll come to this out here as well. But yeah, sure. I'll come to you after that, please. The gentleman in the back row.
Morning, sir. And
Good morning.
I have a question for both of you. So I know you may be getting many questions around valuation. So this one is more around valuations only. So I think Neeraj sir explained very well why India has very good chances of getting even a better valuation with some statistics, and also a lot of liquidity available in the markets. Further, new generation and new mutual funds have been in market, which sees valuation in different brackets. So my question is, do we think so overall this valuation averages might not repeat to the history, but rhyme with the history with the higher averages?
So the chart that Neeraj showed of 23,000 crore monthly SIPs is the thing that excites everybody, right? And your question, and which Neeraj also asked in a humorous way in his slide, this time is different. Why not it could actually be different this time. So, when we talk about the monthly SIP book, that is only the demand side. What gets ignored is the amount of supply. Axis Mutual Fund, I think, has put out a note on the upcoming supply. Is included QIPs, IPOs, the private equity sales that are there, shares coming out of the lockup, post IPO, all that. That amount is close to 6 lakh crores. Kalpen referred to the fact that many promoters are actually selling off their businesses because they do not find value in that. So it is, in humor, it has been said that when the bull market starts, the retail investors have the money and the promoters have the vision for the company. Towards the end, the promoters get the money and the retail investors have the vision. Today, when we are even asking the question that are we permanently at a high level? So what used to be a 15p market, are we permanently at 25? To my mind, that is a signal.
That is a no. Okay, perfect. So I think that answers your question, right? At least. Yeah, perfect. Thank you for your question. We needed the mic here in the cluster. There are 2 or 3 questions here.
मॉर्निंग सर.
वेरी गुड मॉर्निंग.
मेरा जो क्वेश्चन है, माय नेम इज ब्रिजेश. मेरा क्वेश्चन थोड़ा डिफरेंट है. लास्ट 125 महीने में मतलब स्टेबल गवर्नमेंट थी हमारे पास, उसमें 4 चीज मेजर हुई है. जीएसटी उसने हम लोगों ने पचा लिया, डिमोनेटाइजेशन हम लोगों ने पचा लिया, कोविड भी पचा लिया, ये इलेक्शन भी हम लोगों ने ऑलमोस्ट निपटा लिया है. अभी तक स्टेबल गवर्नमेंट है. नाउ नेक्स्ट 5 to 6 months जम्मू कश्मीर, झारखंड, महाराष्ट्र, हरियाणा एंड दिल्ली, उसमें अभी तक जो भी था वो स्टेबल गवर्नमेंट थी. इसकी वजह से कुछ दिख नहीं रहा है. मतलब हमारी जो एज ऑफ नाउ जो इन्वेस्ट कर रहा है या शेयर मार्केट है वो ऑलवेज ठीक ठाक जा रहा है, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. ताकि बैक ऑफ माइंड जो भी नए अकाउंट ओपन, डीमेट अकाउंट ओपन हो रहे हैं, जो काफी बाकी कंट्री से काफी कम है एज ऑफ नाउ. मतलब 15 करोड़ डीमेट अकाउंट है, डेट इज ओके. लेकिन वो कंटिन्यू मार्केट अप जा रहा है. लेकिन कहीं ना कहीं रीजन एक्सेप्ट अगर चांसेस बहुत कम है स्टेबल गवर्नमेंट की असेंबली इलेक्शन में ना के बराबर है. मे बी 5 साल के बाद बीजेपी ना भी आ सकती है. इज इट पॉसिबल? इट इज पॉसिबल?
तो क्वेश्चन क्या आपका सर?
हाँ, मेरा क्वेश्चन वो है. तो इस हिसाब से ये इतना आगे जाएगा कि नहीं जाएगा? आगे कहीं ना कहीं ठीक है, लार्ज कैप तो अभी तक बढ़ा नहीं, वो बढ़ जाएगा. लेकिन स्मॉल कैप और मिड कैप की बात कर रहा है जो आज तक बढ़ रहा है, वो कहीं ना कहीं दिक्कत आएगी.
ओके, सो आपका क्वेश्चन ये है कि स्टेबल गवर्नमेंट,
हाँ, एफएमसीजी स्टॉक बढ़ जाएंगे. लेकिन काफी सारी जो नए सेक्टर्स है वहां पे मुझे थोड़ा डाउट लग रहा है. उसमें थोड़ी क्लैरिटी चाहिए. अगर ऐसा हुआ तो क्या होगा?
अगर आपको अगले 5-10 साल के जो चुनाव होने वाले हैं भारत में और विदेश में, आपको सारे परिणाम अभी मिल जाए तो क्या आप ज्यादा मुनाफा कमा पाएंगे बाजार में? आंसर इज नो. 2004 में 2004 India was expected to come back to power. India lost the election in a surprise election result, and there were lower circuit in the market. People said it will leave aside a coalition government, it will be a minority government. Despite having a coalition, all coalition partners put together, they will not have simple majority in Lok Sabha. They will have to be supported from outside by Communist Party of India. 2004 to 2007, we saw an enormous bull run, which no one could have predicted. Brexit, people said UK will not vote for Brexit. And if Brexit happens, markets will crash. Brexit happened, no crash. Trump versus Hillary Clinton, people said Clinton will win. Trump came back with a majority, or Trump won the election, no crash. So I don't think it makes any meaningful difference. in the past 10, 15, 20 years, interest rates have gone up, come down, different NDAs come in, UPAs come in. We have had stable majority, we have had minority government, coalition governments. I think someone had put out the data point, the best period of stock market returns was of some very, very short-lived government, I think. No, it was Deve Gowda or Chandrasekhar or something.
David
Yeah, so I don't think that is something we worry about, at least. I worry about. I don't know about him.
No, likewise, because see, look at it again. Market क्या है? आप stocks और companies खरीद रहे हो, तो कोई भी company, बड़ी कंपनीज जो 20, 30, 40 साल से सर्वाइव हुई और बड़ी हुई है, वो इस तरह से अपनी डिसीजन मेकिंग नहीं लेती है कि अगले साल में कौन होगा, स्टेट इलेक्शंस में क्या होने वाला है. अल्टीमेटली आप उनका प्रॉफिट खरीद रहे हो, तो अगर उनके डे टू डे काम में वो बिल्कुल दिमाग नहीं लगाते, ठीक है एक दो बार ध्यान में रख लेते होंगे, बट व्हेन दे आर ऑपरेटिंग देयर बिजनेस दे डोंट स्टार्ट विद दीज क्वेश्चंस. इट इज वेरी आयरॉनिक दैट वी स्टार्ट विद these questions. Businesses don't ask these questions. Now if you're going to be an owner of business, we have to learn that are we asking the right questions, because many times too many questions will also give you too many wrong questions. Even if you get the right answers, if the question is wrong, it will not lead us anywhere. So they will have these type of events can have short term noises and fluctuations. ऊपर नीचे होगा, वो predictable नहीं है. Because वो predictable नहीं है, आप अपने variable से इसको हटा दो. जो predictable है और जिसका actually बड़ा impact होता है, उसको आप अपने variable में रखिए. तो predictable है कि कंपनीज के प्रॉफिट्स ग्रो होंगे कि नहीं होंगे, उस पर आप कॉल एक थोड़े ले सकते हो, और आप क्या भाव पे खरीद रहे हो वो सबसे बड़ा प्रेडिक्टेबल पावर आपके हाथ में आज है, ना कि कौन से स्टेट में कौन जीतेगा और हारेगा. सो आई थिंक वी ऑल्सो हैव ओवर टाइम इवॉल्व्ड. दीज आर ग्रेट टॉकिंग पॉइंट्स, अच्छा लगता है बात करना, बट उसकी यूटिलिटी जो है अपने लॉन्ग टर्म रिटर्न में या मीडियम टर्म रिटर्न में बहुत ही कम है.
I completely agree. In fact, आप क्या कोई भी ये प्रेडिक्ट नहीं कर पाएगा. आप शायद सच भी हो फिलहाल, बट ये ना आपको पता है कि आप सच हो, ना किसी और को पता है. द ओनली थिंग इज, अगर ये सब होता है तो यू शुड सेलिब्रेट करेक्शंस, बिकॉज अगर आपको लग रहा है कि मार्केट नेक्स्ट 7 साल में ऊपर ही होने वाला है, तो आप करेक्शन को वेलकम करो. करेक्शन आएगा, आपको लेने का चांस मिलेगा. सो दैट शुड बी वन थिंग. द जेंटलमैन हियर in the white
Excuse me.
Yeah, okay, sorry. I'll just come to you after this, please. I didn't know you have the mic. Just
My question is to Rajeev, sir.
what's your good name, please?
My name is Hemal Kapasi. I'm coming from Rajkot. My question is for Rajeev, sir. Because in your portfolio you have global companies. So USA is on all-time high debt. So what effect you see in the global stocks that you have? And also what impact it will create on Indian stock market in coming 2-3 years? And how it will impact on the ground? मतलब जब वो डेट का प्रॉब्लम नज़दीक आएगा तो कैसे होगा, क्या क्या इवेंट्स आ सकती है मार्केट्स में, और उसका इफेक्ट कैसे आएगा वो थोड़ा समझना है.
Sorry, आपने किस चीज के बारे में पूछा? यूएस डेट, ग्लोबल डेट. अच्छा, हाँ, इनका क्वेश्चन है कि ग्लोबल डेट इतना ज्यादा है तो क्या इसका इम्पैक्ट क्या हो सकता है. राजीव प्लीज.
We don't look at things like debt level of US Federal Reserve, interest rate cycles, GDP growth. When you are, especially about US markets, the companies that you get over there are operating on a global scale. They are not companies operating only in the US markets. The question that we ask is, are they providing a product or a service which has pricing power, which will deliver profits for us as shareholders? If because of that, let's say there is big inflation or whatever, it doesn't matter. And this data is there in our fact sheet. The companies that we have invested over there are the larger tech-related businesses. Now, in India, we have widespread data usage because of cheap data plans by Jio and Airtel, and inexpensive Android phones. The phones are Android phones or Apple phones. People download YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, or Flipkart, and all these. So these are on the business is in the right direction. What happens to macro? I don't have an answer. I don't worry too much about that. irrespective of what happens to US currency, these are global businesses, duopoly or monopoly kind of businesses in that area of operation. And I think they'll do reasonably okay. At least that's the assessment that we have.
Thanks, Rajeev. Just before I ask the question, Kalpen, just a quick question to you. So Prashant Khemka once in an interview told me कि macro के बारे में वर्णन करना coin toss के बराबर है कि किस बाजू गिरेगा, because कोई predict नहीं कर पा रहा है. तो in fact अच्छी companies choose good companies and stick to that because you can't predict the macro. Would you subscribe to that? Rajeev seems to be suggesting that, I believe.
So there are two schools of thought. One is because हमको नहीं समझ आता है macro, we more or less say that macro doesn't matter. And I'm in that camp. नहीं समझ आता है. And I look at it this way. 4 साल पहले फेड के सब महारथी ने क्या बोला कि इन्फ्लेशन ट्रांजिटरी है, इंटरेस्ट रेट्स लो रहेंगे, बट इंटरेस्ट रेट्स रोज वेरी शार्पली. Who got it right? Almost no one. The same experts are also now writing articles or speaking on television कि अब यहाँ से इंटरेस्ट रेट कम होंगे. ऊपर गया वो किसी ने सही पकड़ा नहीं, तो नीचे गया उसके व्यू का कोई मतलब नहीं है. So there is very poor accountability of macro projections or predictions, unfortunately. No one records कि आपने क्या बोला था. तो दूसरा, multivariate world, unknowable world, unfair universe. Most things are not knowable. Fed doesn't know, RBI doesn't know. So broadly ध्यान में रखना जरूरी है कि साइकिल में कहाँ पे है. पता है कि अगर यूएस में 15 साल के बाद 0% पे इंटरेस्ट रेट्स आए हैं, तो odds यहाँ से ऊपर जाने के ज्यादा है versus going down. You can broadly assign odds, but precision को ढूंढना जरूरी नहीं है. And I agree that ultimately, if we can narrow down our investing to 1 or 2 variables, the odds of success improve. If we have to rely on 20 variables to decide क्या करना है, you will freeze and you will misfire on, because these data points move very sharply. They are not long term or durable data points. They'll quickly keep. अभी जैसे काफी टाइम मुझे अपनी टीम में से कोई यंग एनालिस्ट आके बोलेगा यूएस का जॉब डेटा आ गया है, सो आई विल से सो व्हाट, देन ही विल से ओके नाउ बिकॉज ऑफ व्हिच बॉन्ड यील्ड्स हैव रिजन बाय 3 basis points देयर. So then again, so what can you do with that information? Can I do anything in my portfolio of 1.5-2 lakh crores yet? No. So and these are all noisy weekly variables which keep coming. So you have to decide. ब्रॉडली समझ होनी चाहिए कि डेफिसिट कैसे मूव हो रहा है, ब्रॉड ट्रेंड्स क्या है. अगर गवर्नमेंट का स्पेंडिंग इंक्रीज हो रहा है, रेकलेस स्पेंडिंग है, तो इंटरेस्ट रेट्स ऊपर जा सकते हैं, करेंसी पे प्रेशर आ सकता है, देन यू कैन अकॉर्डिंगली डू सम ब्रॉड टिल्स टू योर पोर्टफोलियो. बट building a portfolio only on macro, very few people get it. And I would say they should be the ones to answer this because they have expertise. And it's unfair on someone like me who does not understand macro to make that comment. There are many guys who look at data from a macro lens and there are successful macro investors.
Yep.
So there's no one right path to heaven.
Okay. Thanks for that, both of you. The gentleman here, he had a question.
Yeah, hi, good morning. First of all, thank you for the lovely insights so far. So my question is related to mutual fund industry only. And my question is for the people who want to build career in the field of mutual fund distribution, right? So we have seen industry has grown from 5 lakh crore to 65 lakh crore. In couple of years, industry will be 100 lakh crore. And to give a perspective, we have seen that in India, there are roughly 25-26 lakhs insurance advisor. But contrary to that, in the industry we are in, we find only 50, 60, 70,000 active advisor. So, and the people who are managing somewhere around 200 to 25 crore, they are into top 100. So the question is mutual fund industry ready with this fit for the advisor fit? Because the person who is going to come into this business may take 6 to 7 years to reach on the break-even point. So your thoughts on that?
Okay.
So very quickly, see.
So we have 15 minutes, so now we'll try and do a bit of a rapid Q&A, yes? Because there are a lot more questions.
That the fund industry is ready. We can absorb as much talent. As you rightly said, सिर्फ 50,000 लोग हैं. तो 10 लाख लोग आएंगे तो भी we are ready. But the question is, income is not enough. But that's in a way good for the consumer because unlike other categories of financial services where costs are too high. This is a reasonable, fair cost, efficient cost product, which is why explosion हुआ है. Volume growth क्यों हुआ है? Because product has delivered value to the consumer and will continue to deliver. So to anyone who wants to join the business, we always say that don't come only for a monoline fund business. Be a financial planner where you can do 5 things for the consumer rather than one monoline. And of course, that monoline will take longer to break even. There's no debate in that. Maths hai wo to. So you have to take that call that are you able to add enough value to the life of the consumer on his entire wallet so that you can have a better stable business model. But the fund industry definitely is ready. This is a very, very long-term industry. उतार चढ़ाव आएंगे यहाँ से. When times are good, you have to worry about bad times and vice versa. But it's such a powerful product, such a democratic product. अभी मैडम ने 100 रुपए की बात की. ये बहुत बड़ा revolution हो सकता है to help fellow Indians actually beat inflation. We are an inflationary country, right? 100 रुपया हर साल 6-7 रुपया lose करता है. तो कोई better तरीका नहीं है except a mutual fund to help Indians become better savers.
Coming. Okay, anybody has the mic as yet? No. Okay, so 3 questions. Let's start with this gentleman. Okay, you have a mic with you? No, you don't. Okay, let's start with him. Then I'll come to you, and then to you, please.
I'm Harshil. For the new investors like me, you said that you do SIP like birthday SIP, anniversary SIP. So can you tell us a few negative points of SIP? And one more question, whether it is relevant to ask or not, I don't know. That when you suggest to switch mutual funds, like from PP to DSP or whatever.
PP के पास बहुत बड़ा पैसा है, तो if you shift our revenues will grow very fast. But I never suggest to shift to anybody because see, इंडिया में 1400 म्यूचुअल फंड स्कीम्स है. अगले 20 साल में आप आज पैसा डालोगे, आपको 10 साल बाद पैसे की जरूरत पड़ेगी, या 20 साल बाद या 5 साल बाद. उस दिन पे कौन से फंड ने अच्छा परफॉर्म किया किसी को नहीं मालूम है. आई कांट टेल यू इन एडवांस इन द नेक्स्ट 5 or 10 years which scheme from my personal portfolio is going to do well or not doing well. So you have to choose broadly around some principles. You have to learn those principles. You have Javeri Securities team to guide you because they do that homework. And once you choose, generally do nothing because every time you change or switch, tax लगेगा. वो टैक्स क्यों उस टैक्स का कंपाउंडिंग लॉस होगा और उसके बाद जो स्कीम में जाओगे वो परफॉर्म करेगा कि नहीं उसका कोई गारंटी नहीं है रिलेटिवली. सो वन इज यू शुड हैव वेरी हाई थ्रेशोल्ड टू स्विच. मतलब ऑलमोस्ट स्टार्ट बाय सेइंग कि टिल माय गोल इज नॉट अचीव्ड आई विल नॉट वांट टू स्विच. इफ यू सिलेक्ट अ फंड राइट यू विल नॉट नीड टू स्विच. दैट्स माय फर्स्ट पॉइंट. एंड SIP generally it works. So look at this chart. This is the journey of any equity fund. कहीं पे कोई भी फंड ले लो, ये ऊपर जाता है, फिर नीचे जाता है, फिर वापस ऊपर आया, फिर 5-6 साल कहीं नहीं गया, फिर ऊपर गया, नीचे गया. सो SIP का एडवांटेज क्या है कि जब ये नीचे जाता है, इन दिस फेज यू आर एक्वायरिंग मोर यूनिट्स. लेफ्ट टू योरसेल्फ, इफ यू हैव टू इन्वेस्ट इन दिस फेज, यू विल रन अवे बिकॉज आवर माइंड विल पुश अस सेइंग सब खराब है, नहीं डालो पैसा. तो ये एक एडवांटेज है SIP का. SIP का डिसएडवांटेज क्या है कि अगर आपने पूरा का पूरा पैसा यहां लगा दिया होता तो वो पर्पल लाइन ऊपर देखो कहां पे है. सो यू SIP averages you, so your average NAV will be somewhere here at this level. So and secondly, if market is continuously rising, you do your SIP in a rising market and after that a bear market happens. In those periods SIPs may underperform, but in my experience I have seen in 25-30 years markets are never permanently rising. They are volatile, they give you a chance, and hence I think most investors have benefited from SIP. I can tell you, my driver started his SIP. I started on his behalf here at the peak of the market in 2008. The beauty is, in this phase, I got scared because intelligence, market से निकल जाना चाहिए, time करना चाहिए. उसके पास intelligence नहीं था. His SIPs continued. Today he's using that money to fund engineering for his daughter and 2 other kids. So SIPs work.
Do you advise to evaluate mutual fund after 3 years or every 3 years, or you just forget?
No, you should broadly, like आप annual checkup करते हो once in a year or 2. You should just evaluate that how is the portfolio progressing, how is your asset allocation. आपके अगले 1 साल में कोई goals है तो कुछ rebalance करना है नहीं करना है. But if your selection approach is right, most likely you will not need to keep reviewing things. I can only say from my experience that my best performing funds are not the ones where the returns are the highest. they are the ones which I have forgotten. जो मैं भूल गया हूँ पैसा डाल के. They are the best performing funds. So जितना कम रिव्यू करते हो उतना odds ज़्यादा होता है. और रिव्यू का भी एक टेक्निक होना चाहिए. My limited point is हमारे रिव्यू के मैकेनिज्म्स भी गलत है. Every time we review, we just look at last 1, 2, 3 year return किसका ज़्यादा है कम है. Accordingly, we make changes. That's a very wrong way of review. So you need to talk to the advisor. You need to talk to your distributor because they have the technique to guide कि review कैसे करना है.
Rajeev, you want to add? Okay. ठीक है. Lovely answer. Thank you. मैं just before you ask your question, मैं एक खाली छोटी सी चीज़ बोलना चाहूँगा if that is okay. कोई भी इन्वेस्टिंग आप ले लो, म्यूचुअल फंड इन्वेस्टिंग में आप म्यूचुअल फंड चूज करो, एसआईपी करो या लमसम करो, स्टॉक लो, घर लो, कुछ भी लो, इन्वेस्टिंग इज अ हाइपोथेसिस. आपने एक हाइपोथेसिस बनाई है कि यहां से लेके नेक्स्ट 5 साल, 3 साल, 10 साल तक आपका इन्वेस्टमेंट ऐसे चलेगा. शायद आपकी हाइपोथेसिस सही चले, इन विच केस इट्स ग्रेट फॉर यू. समटाइम्स इट माइट बी रॉन्ग. कई बार आप सोचोगे कि मैंने ये स्टॉक लिया, मेरे फ्रेंड ने ये स्टॉक लिया, उसका अच्छा चल गया, मेरा नहीं चला, मार्केट्स मेरे लिए खराब है. दैट्स नॉट ट्रू. आपने एक हाइपोथेसिस बनाई है, अगर आपकी हाइपोथेसिस अच्छी चल गई तो ग्रेट है. सिमिलरली ना म्यूचुअल फंड इन्वेस्टिंग, आपने अगर एक फंड में इन्वेस्ट किया है, आपके फंड ने 15% दिया है, किसी और फंड ने 18% दिया है, इट्स ओके. आफ्टर अ पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम आपने एक हाइपोथेसिस करके ये चूज किया है. अगर चेंज करा है, रिव्यू करो और ऑल्टर करो, बट यू विल गो रॉन्ग. सो डोंट एक्सपेक्ट कि आपने सब फ्रेमवर्क राइट कर दिया तो आप सही जाने वाले हैं. आप अपनी प्रोबेबिलिटी इंक्रीज कर रहे हो. प्लीज कीप दैट इन माइंड. द जेंटलमैन इन द मरून टी शर्ट.
For Kalpen bhai, I'm Sachin.
Hi. So we have 6 minutes. We'll do a very quick rapid fire now. So quick question, please.
So I want to know about index investing. Why Nifty top 10 now, and how it would be better than BSE 500?
Chart somewhere answers that. इस phase में the purple line, which is the small cap and the mid cap, they have given obscene returns. That is where we feel the bubble is getting built. And if you see from similar phase was 2008, ये पर्पल लाइन 2008 से ऑलमोस्ट 2016 तक उसका रिटर्न सिंगल डिजिट था. इनफैक्ट एट द टाइम ऑफ कोविड क्रैश द 10-year रिटर्न वाज जीरो. सो वी सी लॉट ऑफ फ्रॉथ इन द स्मॉल एंड मिड कैप. एंड ऑन द अदर हैंड, लाइक आई सेड, द लार्जेस्ट बैंक्स हैव अर्न्ड एफडी रिटर्न्स. सो वी फाइंड मोर कंफर्ट इन द लार्जेस्ट 10 stocks right now. Valuations are comfortable, businesses are solid, and so in a way we are creating counterbalance. Last 1 year, the stock number 11 to 500, the balance 490 stocks went up by 50%. The first 10 stocks have gone up by 15%. So 1:3 का ratio है. So on all parameters, we think margin of safety is relatively better in the top 10 stocks versus the last phase.
Perfect. Okay, great. Who has a mic? Anybody has a mic? अच्छा, पहले इनको और बाद में इनको. Yep, please, your question.
Hello, I'm Rakesh Shah. I work Torrent Farmers since years together, and my question is, sir, that promoters are selling right now. What market will react it? Promoters are selling heavily right now.
So far market has been ignoring promoter selling. So one of the fund managers jokingly said that if Mr. Mukesh Ambani said, I want to sell all my stock in Reliance, markets are so bullish, they'll absorb everything and price will still go up. So far impact has not been there. But from a fundamental point of view, I think that is a signaling point where maybe things are overheated.
In the coming days, if they are selling more, what would be the effect?
Short term, very difficult to predict. So far, selling has been absorbed.
So my another question is...
Sorry, sir. We'll have to take one question because there are a lot of other questions. So you'll have to excuse me for that. Yes, the gentleman out here in the blue shirt had a question. And then who else? One last question. Anybody else? Yeah, the one next to you. Okay, after you.
Hi, myself Hardik Patel. मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है आप दोनों से कि एट एनी पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम जो करेक्शन रहता है मार्केट का, वो कितना परसेंटेज का हेल्दी करेक्शन कहलाएगा?
What is a healthy correction? What quantum of correction is a healthy correction?
Depends on stock to stock, sir. So if you are buying, the bigger the better. But from your existing portfolio, obviously, you'll see mark-to-market losses of a big amount. Currently, in select stocks, and maybe I'm sounding a bit alarmist, there will be in the market today at least 25 to 50 stocks where it could be 75-80% as well.
मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि पर्टिकुलर कोई परसेंटेज है कि जो ओवरऑल मार्केट का करेक्शन हेल्दी करेक्शन कहलाएगा?
ऐसा कोई फॉर्मूला मुझे नहीं मिला सर आज तक.
कल्पेन, थैंक यू सर.
जो करेक्शन होने के बाद आपको पैसा लगाने का मन हो, वो हेल्दी करेक्शन है. Try still.
So,
if you अगर करेक्शन के बाद मन ना हो तो और भी हेल्दी है.
बिकॉज करेक्शन के बाद जब मन नहीं होता है तो बहुत कम सी दुनिया में ना, हर चीज में पावर लॉ है. 5% लोग ही सक्सेस अचीव करते हैं. तो इन्वेस्टिंग में भी वही है कि जो सस्ता खरीद के लंबा रुकता है, दो ही गेम है, सस्ता खरीदो और लंबा रुको. इसके अलावा बाकी सब नॉइज है और कोई ऐसे उसमें फाइनाइटनेस ढूंढने की जरूरत नहीं है कि 5% सही है, 10 सही है. मैं हर करेक्शन पे, मैंने किसी टीवी एंकर को बोला है कि सेंसेक्स एट 70,000 पे बलून्स उड़ाते हैं, केक काटते हैं, 80,000 पे बड़ा केक होता है, 90 पे और बड़ा होता है, 1 लाख पे एक डिजिट ऐड हो जाएगा. बट 50,000 पे केक कटिंग क्यों नहीं होना चाहिए, 40 पे क्यों नहीं होना चाहिए? तो दैट इज द राइट वे ऑफ इन्वेस्टिंग. दैट आपको जो लेवल पे कंफर्ट आता है, बिकॉज सबका पर्सनल न्यूआंस अलग है. आपका वेट क्या होना चाहिए, मेरा क्या होना चाहिए, सबका आंसर अलग अलग होता है. तो इसीलिए इसका कोई सिंपल आंसर नहीं है.
थैंक यू.
Okay, the one behind. Yep. Sorry, we can't hear you. Can you switch on the mic or speak loudly? You are young.
Yeah, so Kalpen bhai, Rajeev bhai, it's always nice to meet and talk to you, Flame University or the FF. My questions to all of you, in fact, Neeraj, you can also add. There's a lot of talk on the fundamentals, factor of investing, smart beta. So as an investor or the distributors or as an analyst, what are your view on the active versus passive, or is there something, beyond the Sensex or the Nifty 50, that is something blend of the active and the passive? Thank you.
He asked you also.
No, I can also add. We are the two best people. Why should I even bother?
Okay, see, again, too many labels. We are responsible also to confuse all of you by giving you so many labels. It is like, आपने आज ये ऑरेंज नहीं, कौन सा कलर है, ब्राउन कलर का टी शर्ट है, तो रेड भी पहना होता तो उतना ही अच्छा लगता, येलो भी उतना ही अच्छा लगता. तो these are all labels or pipelines to ultimately buy corporate India's good companies which earn 18 to 20% ROEs and grow at 12-13% long-term growth rate. So all these labels will take you there only. It doesn't matter. If you do not understand most of these things, index से शुरू कीजिए या एक अच्छा flexi cap fund लेके permanently छोड़ दीजिए. You should not get confused into all these labels of active, passive, beta, smart beta. हमें smart investor बनना है, labels पे invest नहीं करना है. लेबल एक ही है कि सेंसिबल इन्वेस्टिंग क्या है, साउंड इन्वेस्टिंग क्या है. और साउंड इन्वेस्टिंग आई ट्राइड टू कैप्चर इन second last line. Avoid poor quality companies, avoid paying high for good or bad companies, and then do nothing. ये तीन ही फ्रेमवर्क्स है. बहुत सिंपल और बोरिंग है, इसलिए इतना मजा नहीं आता है सुनने में, बट वही करना है आपको. और इतने सब कॉम्प्लेक्सिटीज में जाने की जरूरत नहीं. You can explain in a better voice.
Yeah, if someone is a new investor and saying, "Itna confusion hai, why bother whether they should buy Kalpen's fund or Rajeev's fund or Navneet's fund?" We have some very beautiful index funds at very, very low cost. Costs have come down to as low as 4 basis points for some of the passive ETFs. So, fill it, shut it, forget it. Someone who does not want to come to conferences like this, saying I would rather be dining out with my family on a weekend. Those people, starting people, can buy the very basic passive funds. The moment you go beyond the basic passive funds, then in a way you are in the active territory. The worst thing, in my opinion, one can do is buy smart sounding funds where expense ratios are high, where you are buying a passive fund at the cost of active. So if your ETF is going to charge you 75 basis points or 1%, then why are you buying that passive fund? At a low cost, if people can replicate value, momentum, quality, all these factors, maybe that will be a competition in the future, but we have to wait and see.
Well, I hope that answers so many of your questions. But I wonder, just before we end, Javeri Securities, you want to add a word or two? आपको एक सवाल पूछ सकता हूँ? पूछ सकता हूँ? Okay. So कमल भाई आप बताएं कि यहाँ पे इतने म्यूचुअल फंड के क्वेश्चंस हुए हैं, वैल्यूएशंस के क्वेश्चंस हुए हैं, आप तो डेली यहाँ पे करते रहते हैं, तो आपको क्या डर लग रहा है फिलहाल वैल्यूएशंस से?
नहीं, मुझे ये वैल्यूएशन से कोई डर नहीं लग रहा है. On the contrary, I always advise to my all the clients that this is the time you put your money into your saving account. It's a big crime. Better you should remain invested all the way.
Okay. Fair call. Thank you for that. Okay, I think we have to slip into a Janvi, I'll hand it over to you, but first a really long round of applause for our two guests. Fabulous stuff. और जो कहते हैं ना, they saved the best for the last. किसी ने क्वेश्चन पूछा कि हेल्दी करेक्शन कौन सा होता है, वो जो आंसर था, that was the highlight of the morning for me. So thank you both of you. Fascinating to talk to you.